So today we need to gather for a Sunday special because there has been so much happening in the college football news cycle, especially if you're an Alabama fan, where the Crimson Tide not only got a top prospect to commit in the class of 2024, a four-star defensive back out the state of Florida, Jameer Grimsley, but they also saw a player who could have been a key piece to that defensive line enter his name into the transfer portal in Jamil Burroughs. And today, we're going to break it all down. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited that Grimsley commits to Alabama? And then let me know who you think is next. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below as those interactions seem small. They are massive to content creators such as myself. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And first and foremost, let's start with the newest edition of the Crimson Tide's 2024 recruiting class, a class that's really starting to surge. And of course, today, we're going to be breaking down four-star defensive back out the state of Florida, Jameer Grimsley, a top player in the class of 2024, a player who specifically comes in as the number 215 player in the nation, the number 19 cornerback in the nation, and the number 34 player in the state of Florida. And first and foremost, that's the first thing that really stood out to me about this, is Alabama has had so much success recruiting the state of Florida that you want to make sure that you maintain that pipeline. There are big brands in the state of Florida, something we have got to acknowledge. If Miami is able to turn it around and get it right, we know that Mario Cristobal has the ability to recruit, and if they show the results on the field, that's going to be something we have to watch. Florida State, a lot of people are intrigued to see what they do. If they continue showing the turnaround, they're going to be able to recruit with more legitimacy. So too can we say the same thing about the Florida Gators, not to even mention UCF now has their opportunity at being a Power 5 institution. So there's a lot happening in the state of Florida, and if you're Alabama, you love the fact that you can still walk in there and get a player that you really wanted, a player you think will move the needle for your class. I think that's great, not only for what it means for this class for Alabama, but for the future of Alabama recruiting. A school we never worried about recruiting anyways. It's just that you want to maintain these pipelines, and it's always great to see when the Crimson Tide is able to maintain it. But let's talk about Jameer Grimsley specifically, because when you watch him play, there's going to be a lot that excites you, and I actually have a line here that I think is really cool, something I wrote down after I watched all of his film. The kid hits like a safety, he runs like someone who excels at track, he tracks the football like a wide receiver, and then attacks the football at the point of attack like a wide receiver. He covers like a top cornerback. This is a prospect that really excels at every level of the game. If you turn on his film, you'll see him dominating as a wide receiver in various facets, whether we're talking about him high pointing a football, whether we're talking about him straight up burning the defense, because this is a kid that has had several sub 11 second 100-meter dashes in his junior year of high school. So he's only going to be getting faster, and he did that while standing 6'3", 185 pounds. So this is a kid with supreme athletic ability. What about on the defensive side of the ball, though? Because he's rated as a cornerback, and we've talked about his ability as a wide receiver, where he's just straight up embarrassing kids on Friday. The same conversation can be had on the defensive side of the ball. He legitimately hits like a safety. There are so many instances of a wide receiver catching a pass and then just having the wood laid into them, and that pass was not completed. He is a headhunter, but on top of that, he's got a great ability to track the ball and then make a play to disrupt the wide receiver from trying to get a big-time completion. This is the type of cornerback that I think moves the needle. You can't teach 6'3". You can't teach the type of speed he has. The interesting thing about it is he has them both. He has the size and he has the speed, and I think whenever he gets into this Alabama locker room, starts working with T-Rob, starts working with Nick Saban, sky truly is the limit for Grimsley. This is an incredibly gifted prospect, a prospect Alabama fans everywhere need to be over the moon that he joins their class. But what does this mean for the Crimson Tide recruiting class? Well, they now find themselves within the top 20 classes nationally with 10 prospects, which is absurd. They have the fewest number of commits in the top 20 of any team that ranks within the top 20 recruiting classes, and the Crimson Tide is really just getting started. Look, this is something that I think a lot of people are going to wake up on Mondays, check the recruiting rankings, and ask themselves, when in the world did Alabama hit the top 20 recruiting classes in the nation? Because not long ago, they were sitting in the 50s, they were sitting in the 40s, and I was sitting here saying to everybody, no fear, The Crimson Tide will do this. They're going to surge, and before anybody realizes what happened, they're going to be sitting in striking distance. And right now, that looks like exactly what's happening. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised that they've jumped up so much, so far, with so much room still in the class. And when you take a look at this recruiting class, though young, it's in its infancy, it is incredibly gifted with an average recruit rank of just over 93. That's what you love to see. But now let's talk about a situation that I know Alabama fans are interested in. A player who could have been a key piece of that defensive line entering his name into the transfer portal after several reports happened to come out about an incident that occurred with the team. And of course, we're talking about Jamil Burroughs. And look, I have to be 100% honest here. I wasn't surprised to see him enter his name into the transfer portal. I hope all the best for Jamil Burroughs. This was a player that could have had a huge year for Alabama. We were talking about this not long ago, that there were several players that you had to be really excited if you were an Alabama fan that came back. Jaheim Otis is in for a huge year. I think that's the name we all need to be looking forward to. But guys such as Tim Smith, Justin Aboigbe, and Jamil Burroughs, they had some experience, they had some playing time, and that's something you were really looking to hang your hat on. That doesn't look to be the case with Jamil Burroughs anymore. But at the same time, as much as I hope that he finds a new destination, can turn it around, and then really make his impact, I have to maintain that I wasn't super surprised to see his name enter into the transfer portal. And the reason is simple. Last year before the season, many people, including myself, were talking about how incredibly gifted that Alabama team was, and who could blame anybody? You look at it top to bottom, you look at the names, and there were so many talented pieces that excited everybody, not even Alabama fans, and they wouldn't admit it, but they were looking at that Crimson Tide team saying, man, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch Alabama play on Saturdays. I'm just not going to let any of my friends know I'm watching Alabama play on Saturdays. The problem came when discipline reared its ugly head and the lack of discipline for that Alabama team. So whenever we fast forward to the offseason and the reports come out about the incident Jamil Burroughs had with a coach, I was really interested to see what would happen moving forward. This is a player that could be a key piece, but at the same time, if one of the big issues with the team in 2022 and 2023 was the lack of discipline, it was going to be interesting to see the course of action taken, and that's exactly why I'm not surprised to see Jamil Burroughs enter the transfer portal. This is a team for Alabama, the 2023-2024 Crimson Tide, that cannot be plagued with the same issues and discipline that the last team was. They don't have Bryce Young there anymore. They don't have Will Anderson there anymore. They don't have Jameer Gibbs there anymore. And though I contend that in every single area we just talked about, quarterback, running back, defensive end, edge, there are several names that we need to be excited about, several names that are going to make a massive impact and impress everybody. You don't have that experience anymore. And if you had the disciplinary issues with that experience, you absolutely cannot have them when you don't have that experience. So I wasn't surprised at all to see this be the end result. But what does this mean going forward? Because we don't like to sit and dwell on what is. We like to sit and talk about what could be and talk about the moves that could happen as a result of this. And there are several players that could see an increase in production. We're talking about guys such as Jamarian Latham, Monkel Goodwin, two names to keep up with. But I also have to ask you all this question right here. Could this pave the way for true freshman James Smith to find his way on the field? A guy who Nick Saban talked about. An early enrollee who's already turned heads for the Crimson Tide, and if he could find his way onto the field, I think that excites Alabama fans everywhere. We know he's really gifted, it's just that he doesn't have the experience, and at the end of the day, that's where we'll end this on. Alabama has got a lot of talent along the defensive line, even though it was a position I thought they needed to hit really hard in recruiting because it was the biggest need of last year. That doesn't diminish the talent they have, they just don't have the experience. And Jamil Burroughs is someone that had experience. So if some of these young guys can step up and really flash, that's going to be really big for the Alabama Crimson Tide. But I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.